Join us now on Flickr at flickr.com/groups/art of photography. Welcome to the Art of Photography. Happy New Year, everybody. My name is Ted Forbes. Today we're going to talk about sensitivity to light, or ISO. Now, what is ISO and why would you care? Well, in the last couple podcasts we've been talking about aperture and we've been talking about shutter speed and how the right combination of aperture diaphragm on your lens mixed with the right shutter speed is going to give you the correct exposure. Well, the last component to this is the sensitivity of light in your recording medium. Okay, so in film, this would be the film itself, or on your digital camera, it's going to be how you have your sensor set in the camera software. Okay, so let's talk about film first, and what is ISO? Well, ISO is a weird acronym. It actually just stands for the International Organization of Standardization, and it's in the wrong order. But regardless, ISO is simply a way of measuring sensitivity to light, and it is an international standard. Okay, now film comes in what they call speeds, and this is what ISO is. And I have simply a roll of Fuji Velvia that's rated at 100. This is slide film, okay? And I also have a box that contains some Ilford Delta, which is black and white film. That doesn't matter. It's rated at 400. ISO is the same no matter what film you're using, okay? Now, 100 is a slower film speed than the 400, okay? Fair enough. Now, slower speeds are going to require more light for your exposure, okay? So either longer shutter speed or a wider aperture, okay? That kind of thing. A faster film speed is going to require less light to expose the film, okay? So for instance, if you're shooting outdoors on a bright sunny day, you probably want to go with a low ISO rating on your film. So 100 would be really good for that. If you're shooting indoors in low light, you want to go with a higher film speed so you don't have to use a tripod. And if you're shooting handheld, something like that. So 400 would work, or probably even you want to go up to like 800, something like that. And you'll see that, you know, on the shelf, or if you're shopping online, that films come in various speeds. So that's simply what that refers to. Now, the important thing to know here is you might be thinking to yourself, well, if I can shoot on 400 speed and require faster shutter times and I don't have to use a tripod and I can go handheld, why don't I just shoot that all the time? Well, with everything in photography, there is a trade-off, okay? And that trade-off here in the case of film is grain, okay? The higher the speed, the more and bigger grain you're going to have in your final shot. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, I've even pushed film up to 3200 before just to get that look because I wanted a really grainy vintage, kind of vibe to the photo. But if you're shooting outdoors and you're shooting really clean landscapes and you want or architectural imagery and you want everything to be very sharp, you may not want that grain in there. And in that case, you're going to get more sharpness and less grain in a slower film speed, something like 100. Okay, now this ISO, okay, this is a measurement. And remember, light we've talked about is measured in what we call stops, okay? So one stop of light per, going up in a scale is going to give you different exposure values. Now, the number on the ISO doubles for every stop you go up, okay? So if I'm shooting 100 speed film and I need another stop of light, I would need to double that, which would be 100, 200. So what I would need to do is if I needed another stop of light, I would need a 200 speed film, okay? If I needed another stop beyond that, I need to double 200, I would come up with 400, okay? And so 400 speed is 2 stops higher than 100. Remember, it doubles each time. A stop up from 400 would be 800 and then 1600, okay? Now, there are ways of kind of cheating your film and pushing or pulling it. We'll cover that in a separate podcast. But anyway, right now, just remember you need to kind of choose the film that's appropriate for what you're shooting. Okay, now ISO also translates over to digital cameras and digital photography. Now, let's stop just for a second and talk about cameras. It's kind of beyond the scope of this podcast for me to go into step-by-step directions on how to do something on every camera model ever made. So what you'll need to do is I'm going to show you how to do this on my equipment, and I'll use terms that you'll be able to find in your camera manual, and you'll need to go consult that to figure out how to do it on your own system. If you don't have a camera manual, let's say you bought your camera used or something, go visit the website of the manufacturer. Pentax, Canon, Nikon, they all have PDF format manuals to download, and you can look things up there and figure out how to do them. These are things that I'm going to discuss on these that are fairly standard from camera to camera, and so, but the specific way that you do it is going to change from model to model. But anyway, back to ISO. This is an old, obsolete camera, but which makes ISO even more important, and I'll tell you why in a second. But basically, you have a film sensor in here, or excuse me, a digital sensor. Now, with film photography, you are pretty much stuck with one ISO setting for the entire roll of film. Okay, so if I'm halfway through a roll of 100 speed film and I'm going to go inside and shoot in a lower lighting and I need 400 speed film, I have to pull out the roll and put another one in there. I can't continue that. The wonderful thing about digital cameras is you can change your ISO setting from shot to shot, which is very nice. And I'm going to show you how to do this on my camera. Simply, there's a button on the back here next to the little 4 buttons that allow you to dig into the menus on the camera, and it's labeled ISO. And if I push that, basically you're going to see that the film speed of 100 shows up in the window here. And if I turn the shutter wheel here, each time I turn it, you're going to see that that number doubles. So now I'm at 200, and I'm at 400, 800, and 1600, and that's as high as I can go. Now, you'll notice it's doubling, so you're getting one more stop of sensitivity out of your sensor, okay? Now, again, just like in film, there's a trade-off here, and on digital cameras, I'm sorry to report, it's actually kind of worse in some cases, especially on an older camera like this. The higher the sensitivity for the digital sensor, the more noise you're going to get. You don't get grain in digital images, you get digital noise, which is not very pleasing to look at, and it's harder to get to use that for effect, let's say. Now, I will stop and say this, that you know, this podcast, as time goes by, will become very dated, and already camera manufacturers, Nikon, Canon, the big ones, are constantly improving the ways that the camera processes the image. And I've shot on some really nice Nikon cameras that I've rented before and shot up at 800 and seen no noise at all. So this is all kind of relative. So more or less on a digital camera, your choice of shutter speed is going to be more for, you know, what is my aperture size? Do I want to shoot handheld? Am I shooting on a tripod? Things like that. In fact, I think some of the more modern digital cameras don't even start at 100. They start up at, like, you know, 400 or something like that, so 200 usually. So anyway, so that's basically how you can apply ISO to your camera. So for instance, if you're, you know, shooting in low light indoors and you're not able to get a wide enough aperture, or you're not able to get a fast enough shutter speed, you need to boost the ISO. Just know that in some cameras you're going to get more noise doing that. Your other alternative is to use a lower ISO and then use a tripod to shoot on. And I will say this too, if you are serious about shooting any kind of landscapes or still life or anything that's set up in photography that's not people interacting, you're going to need to invest in a tripod. Tripods become kludgy when doing a wedding, so that's not always a good chance. So in that case, you're boosting your ISO is a good option. But owning a tripod is, you know, if you're serious about photography, that's a pretty important thing to do. There's just a lot of things that you simply can't do without it because of these trade-offs we're talking about. So anyway, I hope that explains ISO. This is The Art of Photography, and thanks for watching.